Yes, yes, yes. Good morning. It is that time of day, Saturday. You know what happens on Saturday. I know. It's been a few Saturdays. Where has your girl been? Oops, I'm sorry. Where has your girl been? I've been some of everywhere, actually, but I am back in Chicago as we prepare for the Bears in the playoffs. We are super excited. Let me give the Bears a round of applause. Yes, yes, yes. We are excited about the Bears in the playoffs. Go Bears. We love the Bears. I'm going to just pull up my special guest here. We're going to just get right to it. I got to do a few little technical things here. I've been off work 3 weeks, I think it's been. But guess what? I was back like I never left. Yes, I am. It's your girl, Miss All-Purpose, live on All-Purpose Radio, right here on My Radio Chicago. You can hear me most Saturdays, unless it's the holidays, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. I am happy to be back. Happy New Year. It is 2026. I hope that you've made some of your own new goals and things that you want to do, a nice little bucket list or something that's going to keep you busy. So we're going to jump right into it here. I have a special guest here today. He goes by Galen Bingham. And I got a little cheat sheet here on Galen. And Galen, how do you pronounce your global coaching company? How do you pronounce that word?
Oh, it's Kill Global Coaching and Consulting.
Kill. Yes. Okay, we'll get to that.
All right.
Okay. So I'm going to introduce Galen so I can use my radio voice.
All right.
All right. Let's get to it. Galen Bingham is an executive advisor and founder of
Kill. No N.
No N. I don't know why there's an N on here.
Well, it's spelled with an N, but the N is silent.
Noted. All right. Founder of Kill Global Coaching and Consulting. He works with senior leaders navigating pressure, power, and visibility, drawing on decades of Fortune 500 leadership experience and board service. Galen is also the host of the award-winning Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership podcast. And if Galen doesn't matter, I don't know if it's a legal thing or what, but you can also hear Galen on Saturdays. Also, what's the name of that podcast, Galen?
Think and Grow Rich Live.
Think and Grow Rich Live. Let's give Galen a round of applause. The crowd goes wild. Good morning, Galen. Happy Saturday. How are you today?
Fantastic. Anytime I get to hang out with Ms.All-Purpose, it's hard to make that a bad day. It's hard to make that a bad day. Plus, you started by talking about the Bears.
Go Bears.
I'm always follow. See, I tend to follow players. So Caleb Williams has got some experience in my home state of Oklahoma. So once a Sooner, always a Sooner. I don't care what school you graduate from. Once a Sooner, always a Sooner. So.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. And if you will note, on Facebook, my profile picture is a picture of I and Caleb Williams, FYI. So listen, Galen, we are going to jump right into it. I'm going to just start off with how we met, if you don't mind. So Galen and I are both part of the National Speakers Association, as well as the Black National Speakers Association. And we were in a mastermind together where we work off Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And I just love this story because at the time I was having some struggles with my mastermind goal and the amount of my goal. And I was like, I'm in this organization and I've got these big wigs at my fingertips. And so I chose the biggest wig of them all, Galen Bingham. And so I reached out to Galen and we powwowed. But what I loved most, Galen, was that you were there for me when I had questions and needed some guidance. And so that's how we met. We were in this mastermind and we've been friends, cohorts. I don't know what word you want to call it, for about 5 or 6 years now. So that's how Galen and I met. So Galen, let's jump right into it. Tell us about who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Yeah. So I'm from everywhere. Midwest primarily. Arkansas, Oklahoma is really kind of the foundation, but I've lived in 14 states, 19 cities. I often joke about the witness protection program, but it's actually my corporate career. My dad was in corporate America. I ultimately joined corporate America, and you had to move every couple of years to keep that going. I was in pursuit of becoming senior vice president of sales for a Fortune 500 company. Funny thing happened. I really found a passion for developing leaders and helping people step into the highest expression of who they were intended to be. Fast forward many years later, I've written 2 books. I'm working on my third. I coach executives across 7 countries, a little over 1,000 clients, and I'm having fun. I'm living my best life, helping brilliant people reach for that highest expression of who they were intended to be.
So when you started out your professional career, you started doing what? Like before you started coaching people, you were doing.
I was in sales. So I was started as a sales rep for Kraft Foods, going to grocery stores and all that stuff. And then I progressed to sales. I did a sales technology piece where I was like doing a lot of the computer stuff that salespeople were leveraging. And then I ultimately moved to Coca-Cola North America, where again I went back to being a salesman, and then a sales manager, and then ultimately a sales director. And then the company went through some changes, and they gave me the central third of the United States. And they said, Galen, your job is to figure out what everyone's doing in the central third of the United States and how to help them get better for the Coca-Cola company. That was supposed to be an 18-month assignment. The central third of the United States turned into the entire United States. The entire United States turned into projects in London, in Mexico, and in Canada. And then that turned into the company loaning me out to some of their top clients to help some of their top clients with leadership development. And I looked up and I'd stayed in that 18-month assignment for 8.5 years. And I like to say I could probably make more money as a senior vice president of sales somewhere.
Okay.
I don't know that I could have as much fun and have as much impact as I'm having right now as an executive coach. Today, I am a second level executive coach with the International Coach Federation. And like I said, it takes me all around the world, get to hang out with amazing people like you who are brilliant at what they do. It's not my job to be It's not my job to be brilliant. It's my job to help brilliant people reach for the highest expression of themselves.
Nice. So let's go back a little bit. Were you like the kid in high school who like sold candy or sold things? Like, how did you get into sales? Like, because I don't know if you had candy guys in school, but we had school where they sold candy and treats, whatever, in the school in the hallways. Some people sold weed too, but we just keep it. I guess it's legal now in some places. But how did you even land in sales? Was it just a fluke or what?
I often say that it is a privilege that I didn't appreciate as being a privilege. But growing up, I was a Huxtable. My dad was in corporate America. My dad worked for Kraft Foods and did a whole bunch of things from a sales perspective. He would come home every day, and yes, my mom and my dad were at the dinner table, and we had the complete nuclear family, and folks thought I was Theo and all that stuff. And every day he would come home complaining about things that he had to do at work that day and the different people he was working with. And I was bored out of my mind because, I was 8, 9, 10 years old. I didn't want to hear that stuff. And fast forward today, and I am helping people like my dad navigate through the stuff that he had to go through for me to be here. So this was just part of what I felt like I was expected. I was expected to get into business somehow. And then back to my childhood. I'm the oldest of 3, so I've got a younger brother, and younger sister. But in every situation I was ever in, I felt like at some point I was going to end up being the leader. If I was part of a club, I was going to end up being president of the club. I ran for and became vice president of the student council and captain of the basketball team. Whatever group I was in, I felt like at some point I was going to end up. At some point, someone was going to be looking at me asking what to do. So,
So as a youngster, you just had this innate knowing that you were the boss?
I don't know that I felt like the boss, but I felt like everyone was gonna end up coming to ask me what to do. And, so I had to have an answer. And
Okay.
so I would find myself when I would get into a group, I'd have to scan the situation quickly so that when, m Ms.All-Purpose comes and asks Galen, "What should I be doing?" I needed to
Mm,
have an answer. And
yes.
so
Yes.
every group that I would join, I'd try to figure out what is that answer, and ultimately someone would ask me what to do, and I'd have something I could tell them. So
Nice. I have a friend. He's a pastor. He's one of the presidents. I won't say what fraternity, but he's a president in his fraternity. He's in these different organizations where he's the leader. And I asked him, we went out to lunch one day, and I asked him, I said, how do you deal with so many people and so many personalities? And what he told me was, he says, because I show up as the same person in each room. Right.
mm.
So to that question, how do you deal with so many people at once, so many personalities, and having to give out different advice in different areas?
Yeah, yeah. You remind me of a conversation I had with one of my employees who back in the day, who's now become one of my colleagues. And she reminded me that one of the things I used to say often is honesty is often awkward, but it works and it's easy to remember.
Yes.
So
Yes.
honesty is awkward, but it works and it's easy to
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just try to live by that. It's hard work for me to remember the different versions of myself that I showed up for you, and a
Mhm.
different version I showed up for Frank Kitchen, and a different version I showed up for Peter James. Is like you just gonna get what you're gonna get, and hopefully that works.
Yes.
And if it doesn't, then I'm gonna move on to somebody else.
Well, I'll say what I was thinking first. So I have another friend. He's an entrepreneur, and not always, but I asked him. I said, because he keeps opening these different businesses and quite successful. And so I said, how do you mentally? Because to me, it's like I'm focused on my podcast, right? And I'm focused on my podcast, my radio show, and I'm raising a family, which a lot of people are. But I'm like, I asked him, like, mentally, how do you compartmentalize? Like you gotta be ahead of all these businesses. And he told me, he said, people that start businesses, they don't think like that. They just start this business. Okay, we gotta run it. Start the next business. Okay, we gotta run it. So what advice would you have to somebody like me who's like, okay, I'm doing my podcast, but I like to do things that correlate. So maybe I want to get, so actually, here's a good one. So several people who have came and been guests on my show, they're like, how are you running all these boards and doing all this talking? And they like, Misty, people would pay for you to teach them how to do this. And I was like, really? They like, yeah, you can start on TikTok.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to start a different business, not a different, add on or build to the business that I have now, what kind of advice would you give to me?
Yeah, this is some wisdom that I have earned over the years, because when I first left corporate America and decided I wanted to be a professional coach, I had to go through the training and get certified. Coaching is not about just giving advice, so I had to learn what professional coaching is. And once I got through the training and became a certified coach, if you had $50 and a problem, you had a coach.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I was coaching everybody, right? If you
Mhm.
if you played little league baseball and you wanted to get 3 more hits, I was your coach, right? If you
Okay.
were running a multi-million-dollar corporation, you need to understand, how do I enter into a market in Europe? I was your coach. If you had $50 and a problem, you had a coach. And I was doing a lot of work, but I wasn't enjoying it,
Mm.
and I wasn't making a lot of money. So I had a lot
Okay.
of clients, but I wasn't making a lot of money. And so now the way that I'm explaining it is I was going from the outside in.
Mm.
From the outside in, and
Mhm.
whatever was out there, I was trying to bring it in. I was trying to figure out, how can I deliver against these things that are on the outside. Today, I've been doing this work professionally for a little over a decade now. And so now I'm shifting from outside in to inside out. What's the core of who I am? What's the core of what I do? Who do I serve? And then where do I find, to your point, avenues, other ways that might allow me to express the core of who I am. And so you might have $50, you might have $5,000, you might have $50,000, but I might not be your coach because I'm going from the inside out. Now, if you got $50,000, I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to have a conversation with you.
Yes.
But we're gonna get really, really clear about what I do and who I am and who I serve, because it's not about just serving everyone who needs a coach.
Yes, I understand that. One of the things that I really want to do, so I'm going to give a shout out to someone that we love and respect, Miss Ann McNeil. We just recently spent the weekend with her at her annual meeting of the International Masterminders Association. And so she has a new book out. You have to have a dream for a dream to come true. And so when I was there, I told her, I was like, I don't have a dream, but I've had a lot of dreams, and a lot of my dreams have come true, which puts me in the kind of situation I'm in now, which is I'm like, I need a dream. But as I'm talking to you, one of the dreams I do have, I really want to, and I'm just throwing this out there. It's probably now I'm talking to you. I'm like, okay, because I was thinking I didn't have a dream, but there's really, you say work from the inside out. I really want to start a business, and I don't know, I'll use the word training. I don't know if I want to use the word coaching, but I'll use the word training.
Sure.
Media training for individuals who maybe you're afraid to speak in front of the camera, or you're scared you're going to say the wrong words, but basically media training.
Sure,
and,
sure.
You know, you could be in, I guess, any field, but I see a lot of times I see people who I'll give you a perfect example. So in Chicago, we have this place, we have this company called Bears Nation. Well, Bears Nation, they throw these weekly events during the Bears season, right? So the lady that's head of it at the place where they throw it at, I used to do my podcast out of there. So I was like, you got to come on the podcast. She was like, no. I'm not doing that. I'm not coming on and talking. I'm not doing that. And so I said, okay. So I had a few conversations with her a few different times. And then I said, you ready? She said, I'm ready. So I interviewed her. Maybe it was 6 or 7 minutes. Now, this wasn't a whole lot of training, but maybe it was like 6 or 7 minute interview, 10-minute interview. But after she did the interview, she said, thank you, because that was not as scary as I thought it was going to be. But she had to do it, right, in order to understand that, oh, wait a minute, that wasn't that bad. But in her head, she had the fear. Sure. Right. And so I just saw this interview yesterday where Jamie Foxx was telling Casanai, you know who that is, the streamer guy, Casanai?
Yeah.
He was telling him that he tells his daughter, when you have fear, there's nothing on the other side of fear. Now, you can take that how you want it. But my point is, she had that fear in her head. But once we did it, and so she like gives me credit for helping her step out of her shell, step out of her bubble. So there innately and in my heart and in my soul, and then I got to figure out how to make the money, right? But I felt good because she went from A to point B, right? So maybe now when she gets another opportunity, because she would just let her people talk, she wouldn't do the talking. But now she has, some tools she can use, and now she's more willing to talk to people. So I might have a dream. I might have lied.
Absolutely. There's just so much that you got my neck kind of, the hairs on my neck kind of curling.
I got $50 too, just so you know.
You got $50. All right, so we can do some coaching. So the first thing I'd like to go into is, number one, you have a dream. You have a dream. Everyone has a dream.
Okay.
Everyone knows what that dream is. Everyone knows what they're put on this planet to do. We all know it.
Okay.
But we might not be able to articulate it. Right. And just because you can't articulate it doesn't mean that you don't know. And one of the things I talk about often is that, if I can make it to April, if I can make it to April 2026, I will have been married to the same lady for 31 years.
Okay.
And so if someone were to ask me, Galen, how do you know of all the places that you've been, of all the folks all the people that you've met, all the women that you've come in contact with, how do you know that she's the one? Well, I know it's kind of hard for me to explain.
Okay.
And just because I can't explain it doesn't mean that I don't know. It just means that I don't have the vocabulary to fully explain what I know. And I think the same is true for our dreams, right? So you have a dream, you have this urging, you know what you're put on this planet to do. You might not have the vocabulary to fully articulate what you know. And so when I work with clients, the first part of my job is to help them find the words to articulate what they already know that they're put on this planet to do. And then once they can articulate what they're here to do, then they have what I call I either call it a Moses moment or a holy crap moment, because usually that purpose for them being on this planet is much bigger than what they were playing with before.
Okay.
And so usually they have this moment of realizing, you mean I'm supposed to be doing that? I'm supposed to be running this kind of a business. I'm supposed to be having this kind of conversation. I'm supposed to be talking to all these kinds of people. And that's where the nerves come in. And my job shifts from helping you find the words to helping you find the courage to take the steps that you already know you were supposed to take these steps. My job shifts to trying to help you find the courage to take those steps.
And that makes sense because, and too, as well, I should say, but as well, this is my dream, right? My dream was, so the guy that owns this radio station, we went to junior college together.
All right, look at you.
Well, we graduated from broadcasting school. And so we would sit up at night in college and we're like, yeah, we're going to be on the radio, blah, 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 blah. And we've done that. And so this is one of my dreams. And to your point of having the dreams and not having the words, I would like to help people become better in speaking. So it kind of goes hand in hand, right? The communication. Which is what I went to college and got my undergrad and my master's. And I know Miss Ann say all that don't necessarily mean nothing, but I got my master's in communication and training. Right. So, it's funny because when you go to school, sometimes people like to crack jokes like they call you schoolgirl or whatever. And so I said something the other day and my cousin's like, yeah, one of those 4 degrees is being put to work or something. And I was like, okay, whatever.
Well, that just means that you are a multidisciplinarian. That means you got there are a lot of disciplines that you, if someone asks you, hey, what would you do for nothing? Well, I would do a lot of things for nothing. Well, what are you good at? Well, I'm good at a lot of things, right? That doesn't really help. But that's why I like to ask the question of my clients, what is that thing that if you don't do the way that only you can do it, God might weep a little bit? What is that thing that if you don't step into it the way that only you can step into it, God will find someone else to do it. But man, I really wish Ms.All-Purpose was the one to do this, because I know what I put her through. I know what she's endured. I know how she could tell this story, but because she's not going to answer this call, well, I'm going to ask Galen to do it. Galen can do an all right job, but I think God sheds a tear when we don't do the thing that he created us to do.
Yes. And that's just like when I had times when I wasn't doing my show, I was craving it, right? So this is naturally, I am a natural interviewer. That is one of the gifts that God has given me. So it's like people would say, well, can you send me the questions you're going to ask? I'm like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to ask. Like, I couldn't even tell. But so I highlight entrepreneurs and business owners. Yeah. So a lot of the questions, they're going to kind of be in the same ballpark, right? And then I do cheat a little bit because a lot of my guests also are speakers. And I love interviewing speakers because it's easy, right? Versus Oprah tells the story of how she had stopped preparing for interviews, but she went to go interview Michael Jackson and he was just like an answer kind of person, right? See, we're engaging, right? Yeah. She was saying that she would ask a question, he would answer, and just sit there like, there's like no back and forth.
Right.
She said after that, she started to prepare for her interview. But I want to say something before we go into the next topic. I want to say something that I stole from you, and I will give you the credit. Uh-oh. Because you use this term, double dog dare you. And so when I want to do things, ask a question, ask of somebody, and I'm fearful or whatever it is, I'll say to myself, I double dog dare you. And there's something kind of a little mischievous. It's a little mischievous and scary, but it's like, and then I'll just start busting up and I'll like send the person the question or whatever. And I just start busting up because I'll be like, I double dog dare you. But it kind of gives you permission. I'll speak to myself. It gives me permission. It gives me permission to ask the question. It gives me the comfortability to ask the question, even if I still, you know how to say, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
But if the person says no or I can't help you, it's okay because that double dog dare you, it's almost like a little like game, like you ain't gonna do it. Like,
yeah.
You like, okay, wait, if you gonna double dog dare me, I gotta do it now.
That's right. That's right. One, and this is a tie back to something that you talked about earlier with one of your previous guests. The difference between,
wait, you watched my show or something I said earlier?
the difference between excitement and fear is, because really it's the exact same experience. It's the exact same physical experience. If you're excited about something or if you're fearful about something, your heart rate increases, your body temperature increases. The same thing happens. So some of us get like a queasy feeling in our stomach, right? Whether you're afraid or whether you're excited. The difference between excitement and fear is the story that you're telling yourself about what's on the other side of this experience.
Okay. Yes.
It's the story that you're telling yourself. So if I'm telling myself, oh my gosh, I can't ask this question, my guest is going to hate me and he's going to write all these terrible things about me on social media. He's going to call the company and he's going to have me fired. I'd be afraid of that too.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
and I'm going to lean back. I'm going to lean back and I'm not going to show up fully because I'm afraid. But if I tell the story to myself that this is the question that I need to ask, because if I'm curious about this, that means my listeners are curious about this. And this is going to open up an area of discussion that we weren't planning to go, but the juicy parts come in those areas that we weren't planning to go into. This is the question that is going to open up all kinds of conversation. Well, that makes me excited and I'm going to lean forward. Exact same experience, but the story that we tell ourselves about what's on the other side of that experience helps us determine whether or not it's going to be fear or whether it's going to be excitement. So I would encourage everyone to evaluate the story that we're telling ourselves, because very often that story comes from our subconscious. And our subconscious, they call it our primitive brain.
Okay.
That's where the fight, flight, or freeze comes from. Because our subconscious brain has one responsibility only, and that is to keep us safe.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
When we were roaming the jungles and living in caves, if we heard a rustling or saw a rustling in the weeds, we don't need to evaluate anything. We don't need to calculate anything. We need to run.
Right.
And so our subconscious brain would say, just start running, right? Just start running. And it would create images in our head as to what might be in those weeds, so we'd run faster. Right. Well, today we're not living in caves. We're not roaming the jungles anymore. But our subconscious brain, specifically our amygdala, if I can geek out for you just a little bit.
Geek out. We love it.
The amygdala part of our brain does the exact same thing. It's trying to keep us safe. It tells us all these kinds of stories as to why we shouldn't lean in, why we shouldn't open that business, why we shouldn't take out that loan, why we shouldn't talk to that person, because of all these scary things. Our amygdala is trying to keep us safe. And the amygdala no longer just relegates itself to physical safety. It also looks at psychological safety, emotional safety, financial safety, and it's trying to keep us safe. So it's going to tell us, don't open that business. Three people that you know who opened a business similar, they all failed. You're going to fail too. Don't talk to that person. That person is important. They're way too important to want to have anything of interest to talk with you. It's trying to, our subconscious tells us all these stories because it's trying to keep us emotionally, psychologically, financially safe. And so we've got to do exactly what you just did. We've just got to do it anyway. Because the difference between fear and excitement is the story that we're telling ourselves. And it's just a story. We're making this up.
Right.
None of us knows the future. We don't know what's going to happen, but we tell
True.
ourselves a story about what's going to happen in order to try to keep ourselves safe.
Thank you, Galen. All right. So let's get to it. So you say what are the three priorities that every leader must get right under pressure?
Absolutely. So the key there is under pressure because, again, I'm gonna step back into my geek bag. It is impossible for you to make sound decisions when you are in emotional situations. And
Mm,
so you've got to make these decisions ahead of time as to how you're going to show up under pressure so that you can survive and thrive as a leader. The three priorities is number one, the leader's job is to paint a very clear picture of what success and what winning looks like. So it's my job to show you this is what it looks like once we achieve this goal. If
mhm.
you're part of my organization, you've got to be able to see what that looks like. So I've got to paint that picture. The second priority is I've got to identify and remove barriers that might get in the way of achieving that vision of success. So
Okay.
I got to look down the road 6 months and say Bob doesn't realize this yet, but Bob is going to hit this barrier. And so
Mhm.
now I got a 6 month head start with either figuring out how we're going to navigate around that barrier, or if I can remove that barrier. I got a 6 month head start to doing that. And
Mhm.
then the third priority is my job is to keep people inspired to want to pursue that vision of success. So I got to keep Bob motivated and inspired to want to do this thing that I need for them to do. And the reason why those three are important, number one, that first one's important because um, if I've created that vision, I can see it clearly and I'm motivated to want to pursue it. But my
Mhm.
organization, my team, they don't see it. So I've got to
Okay.
show them that vision. Dr. Martin Luther King said, I have a dream. He didn't say I've got a 16-point plan.
Right.
I got a
Okay.
dream.
Okay.
And
Okay.
he inspired a country by describing the dream, by
Mm,
describing what it would look like once we achieved that dream. And we all stepped into that dream in the way that made sense for each of us because he described the dream, not the plan. He described the dream.
fact.
That second priority is important because if I don't identify and remove those barriers, one of two things are going to happen. Um, if I don't remove that barrier, the first thing that could happen is Bob is going to get down the road, and in 6 months, and he's going to hit that barrier, and he's going to stop. He's going to stop his
Mhm.
momentum because he's hit a barrier. Or the second thing that could happen, Bob could get to working 6 months down the road. He hits this barrier. He might stop, and then he's going to come ask me what to do.
Mhm. Mhm.
And now I got to stop what I'm doing, and I got
Mhm.
to go back in my mind 6 months to think about what was I thinking about 6 months ago, and
Mhm.
then now I got to come up with a workaround for this barrier so that Bob can get back to doing what he needs to do, and I've got to do that while Bob is emotional. Bob
Right.
is
Right.
excited. Bob is he's distraught, and I've got to come up with a sound thought solution in an emotional situation, which I told you earlier, that is impossible to do. It's
Mhm.
impossible to come up with sound decisions in emotional situations. So I got to do that ahead of time. And then the third priority is the reason why that's important. I got to keep Bob motivated to want to pursue this mission. And the
Mhm.
reason why that's important is because I'm always focused on the mission because it's my vision, right?
Okay.
I
Okay.
created, so it's always important to me. It's always front and center to me. But Bob's got his own life. Bob's got his own stuff. Bob is married. Bob's got kids. Bob's got a
Mhm.
mortgage. And so I've got to continue to remind Bob how the mortgage becomes inevitable once we achieve this vision that I've created. The marriage becomes uh, so exciting when he could take his bride on that vacation with the money that's coming from this vision that we're pursuing. So I've got
Mm,
to continuously remind Bob as to why his dreams become possible, almost inevitable, once we achieve this vision that the organization is focused on. And so those are the three priorities of leadership. And very often my clients forget because they get so caught up into, I got to call this client back.
mhm.
I got to develop this spreadsheet. I got to, buy this thing, when in reality, they really only have to do three things:
Mm,
create a vision for what success looks like, help people navigate around barriers that might come up and keep them inspired.
Well, and it's interesting that you say that, because we do get caught up in the to-dos, right?
Yeah.
So I know somebody who I know somebody. I am someone who has been guilty of working in my business versus working on my business. Absolutely. Right? So coming here on Saturday mornings, doing the guests, like I get that down pat, but which is something that I'm working on now. Well, where do I see the podcast 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now? Even to the programming of who do I want on the show in December or November. November's National Caregiving Month. Shout out. You can purchase my new book, Fearless Advocates. Go to fearlessadvocates.com, where I help caregivers become better advocates for them and those that they love. But being able to work on the business and just not in the business. And to your point, okay, understanding what are my goals, right? Where do I want to see it go? Where do I want to see it grow? Things of that nature. So let me ask you this. Why does high performers stall at the executive level?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's a question that I end up addressing a lot with some of the clients I work with, because my target clients are those who are 1 or 2 spots away from the C-suite, and they're trying to figure out, how do I navigate into the senior most levels of the organization, or they have just landed in the C-suite, they've just landed in the top spots, and they turn around and they realize, well, this isn't quite the way the brochure described this role being. This is different than what I expected it to be. How do I navigate in this space that's different than what I imagined it to be? And I think the biggest reasons that leaders stall when they're trying to make that breakthrough is because number one, they believe that they have to do the job the way they've seen other people do it. You may have heard the phrase imposter syndrome.
Yes.
I've talked with a lot of people who've got expertise in understanding and explaining the imposter syndrome. I don't believe that imposter syndrome is actually a thing. I don't think that we're actually imposters. I think what's happening is we've told a story to ourselves about how this thing is supposed to work, based upon how we've seen other people doing it. And we realize, well, I don't do it like that. They're going to realize that I don't do this like they did it, right?
Yes.
I've got a podcast, but I don't do my podcast like Ms.All-Purpose does. So I feel like I'm an imposter because I'm trying to be Ms.All-Purpose, and I can't do that. When are they going to realize that I am not Ms.All-Purpose? And I believe that's what we're struggling with. And so what I encourage my clients to do is, let's get locked into who you are. Let's get locked into how you would do this thing. Recognizing that no matter how hard you try, no matter how much you study, no matter how many classes you take, you're never going to be better than I am at being Galen Bingham.
Right.
You're not gonna make it. You're not gonna make it. At the same time, I am never ever gonna be as good as you at being Ms.All-Purpose, right?
Yes.
I could even try to take your name, and I could try to say, hey, I'm an all-purpose dude. I'm still not gonna be as good as you at doing you. And that's the reason people fail. That's why executives fail. That's why entrepreneurs fail, because they're trying to do it the way they've seen other people do it, and those clothes don't wear the same.
Ooh, those clothes don't wear. Ooh, that's a word right there. That is a gem right there. Often imitated, never duplicated.
That's it.
Next to this, why most leaders don't have a leadership platform?
Wow. So let me tell you a little bit about what a leadership platform is. It's something that I didn't coin the phrase, but I put structure around it. and it's coming from like politicians. Every politician has a political platform. They've got a website they can go to, or a flyer that you can look at, and it lists what they believe, what they say they're going to do if you vote for them, and what the world is going to look like once they're in a position of power. They've got a place that you can go to see their political platform. I believe that all leaders should have a leadership platform that does the same thing. It basically describes, this is what the world would look like once I am in this, once my vision is materialized. First of all, this is my vision. This is where I'm going. Here's who's going with me. And this is what the world will look like once you follow me. And there are 5 questions. I call it the 5Q method, 5 questions that once you answer them, they begin to help you establish your leadership platform. And by leadership, I don't necessarily mean that you're the head of an organization and you got 5,000 people on the org chart. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just stepping into a place where you are expressing the highest level of who you were intended to be. Those 5 questions, these are very simple questions. None of the questions have more than 5 words in them. But simple by no means easy. This is going to take you a while to sit with. The first question is, who are you? And by who are you, I mean, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your triggers? What are those things that you do better than almost anybody on the planet? And you're excited and you're motivated by doing. That's the first question. Who are you? The second question is, the first question, who are you? If you were a company, this would be your brand identity statement.
Okay.
I worked for Coca-Cola for 22 and a half years. I've got some colleagues and some mentors who also work for Pepsi. Both companies do kind of the same things, but the identity of a Coke person is totally different than the identity of a Pepsi person. So what would be your identity? What does it mean to be Ms.All-Purpose? What's your brand identity? The second question is, why are you here? So by why are you here? Why are you on this planet at this point in time? Why weren't you born 50 years earlier, or why weren't you born 20 years later from that than you were born? What's that thing, as I said before, that if you don't do the way that only you can do it, it might leave a hole in the universe and it might cause God to weep. Right? So if you were a company, this would be your mission statement.
Okay.
Why are you here? So the third question is, where are you going? What's your vision of what the world could be if everyone looked at you? If everyone just followed your lead, as I said before, if you're in the 5th grade and everyone's going to end up asking you what to do, what's your vision of what the world could be, what the class could do if everyone listened to you? What's your point of view? Especially if you're an adult, we've been doing this thing long enough where we should have a point of view. What is your point of view? If you were a company, this would be your vision statement. Back to what I said earlier about, as a leader, it's your job to create a vision of where you're trying to go. What's your vision statement for your life and for the world? That's the third question. The fourth question is, who's going with you? How would you describe those people who are like-minded? They're on the same journey. They may be ahead of you on the journey, and therefore someone you might want to enroll as a mentor. They might be behind you on the journey, someone who could benefit from some of your wisdom, some of your insights, some of your training, some of your coaching. They may be alongside of you and they scratch their head at the exact same time that you scratch your head. They don't have any more information, but they're asking the same kinds of questions.
Okay.
And you can tell that they're on the same path. They might be someone that you might want to enroll as an accountability partner because you guys are on the same path, but you can tell that they're like-minded. And you can tell that they're your kind of people. Back to when I was at Coca-Cola, big part of my job was interviewing people to either join the organization, join my team. And I interviewed a lot of people who were talented. They had the credentials, they had the background, they had the education, they could do the job, but they weren't Coca-Cola kind of people.
Okay.
Right? There are some people who are talented. They got the credentials, but they're not Galen Bingham kind of people.
Okay.
Right? Back to
Yes.
what I was saying about $50 in a problem in the beginning. I was outside in. So if you had $50 in a problem, you had a coach. But today, even if you've got $50,000, you might not. I might not be the kind of coach that's going to allow you to get to your next level. You
Okay.
you might not be the kind of client that would really blossom under my kind of coaching. I've got to identify who's going with me. And if you were a company, this would be your brand. This would be your culture fit statement. So that's the fourth question. And the fifth question, a lot of my clients say that this is the question that forces them to take the most pause, and that is, how can anyone tell your answers to the first four questions from just watching you? So how can anyone tell? Because especially if you're an adult, we know how to create the kinds of answers to these questions that will impress people, that will cause people to say, "Wow, Ms.All-Purpose, she's got it all together. Do you see how she answered those questions?" But if I watch you, does it demonstrate that you really do believe and live by the answers to the first four questions? And that's what that fifth question is about. And again, none of those questions have more than five words, but it really does take some soul searching to identify who you are, why you're here, where you're going, who's going with you, and make sure that your life is modeling those answers.
Thank you. Whew, you are dropping some gems on us. I was like, oh, I can't wait to get the written version of this interview. So I've had the pleasure of being a guest on your award-winning Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership podcast. Can you first tell us about that and a little bit about that show, and then tell us about the mastermind show that you are on?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership. This is my second podcast. The first podcast is still out there. It's called The Leadership Toolbox. And I created the Leadership Toolbox when I was still in corporate America, and I was worried about what I was going to talk about. I was worried about what I said and whether or not it would reflect back on my corporate job, because your boy didn't want to get fired, right?
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
that's what that first podcast was about. But once I left corporate America, and once I really started identifying who I was and my leadership platform and what I'm on this planet to do, and I'm going to tell you, I am on this. God created me to help leaders find the highest expression of their purpose for being. That's why I'm here. And once I tapped into that, the leadership toolbox was not true enough for me. So I like whiskey. I like jazz. I like leadership. And so that podcast is an interview podcast. I interview leaders literally all over the world, different industries, different genres. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to drink whiskey to be on the podcast. The only requirements that I have to be on the podcast is that you have to be really, 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 that's three reallys. You got to be really, really, really good at what you do and passionate about doing it. And so if you're really good at what you do, and you're passionate about doing it, then I want to have a conversation with you. And we talk about the three elements, but we really talk about the metaphor. The metaphor of whiskey for me is doing what you do with the folks you do it with.
Okay.
Your crew. It really doesn't matter what folks outside of your crew have to say about this thing that you do, because they're not part of your crew. Right. So that's, for me, that's the metaphor of whiskey. The metaphor of jazz is, how do you get from where you are to where you need to be, even in situations where you either don't have sheet music, or the sheet music that you rehearsed, that you practiced, that you perfected, that music isn't going to work in this situation. So I got to come up with something else. Right. And so for me, that's jazz. And then for me, the metaphor of leadership is, I talk about marketing is fun. Finance is critically important. You got to have strategy. It's critical. But at the end of the day, nobody eats unless somebody kills something.
Yes.
You got to take action. So for me, leadership is an action word. At the end of this conversation, you've got to either inspire someone to take a different action, or you yourself have to take a different action. If nothing's different after that, after what you've done, that we can call it strategy, we can call it a keynote speech, we can call it anything, but we can't call it leadership if there's no action afterwards.
Yes. Was that you this past weekend who brought up Jim Rohn? Was that you? Oh, somebody brought up Jim Rohn.
Yeah, that was one of our colleagues. That was Dr. Will that talked about Jim Rohn.
Dr. Will, but where he says basically the guy told him. And I might be getting mixed up because literally, you know how Big Brother's always watching us in your phone, the internet, everything. So these Jim Rohn videos started popping up. But where Jim says, basically, he was telling the guy, you know, and I don't know if this is part of the Girl Scout story or not, but where he was telling the guy his problems, and he was basically like, you're the problem. You have to change in order to want your circumstances to change.
Yes.
Yeah, so that is so important. Now, tell us about your Saturday morning podcast.
Yes, so every Saturday morning, I get to hang out with Ann McNeil and Dr. Peter James, and we walk through the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. These are 13 principles that were accumulated after 25 years of research that Napoleon Hill conducted. He compiled all of his research into these 13 principles in the book that he published in 1937. Every book, every self-help guru, every leadership expert, and I count myself in that group, we all pull from concepts that come out of this book that was written in 1937, right? Yeah. So if you listen to Les Brown, if you listen to Anthony Robbins, if you listen to Dr. Will, we're all talking about concepts that come out of this book. And so every week, Ann McNeil, Dr. Peter James, and we talk about one of the elements, one of the principles in this book. We bring on guest speakers to talk about how they have stepped into that particular principle and how they leverage those principles in order to achieve success. Because at the core of it, your ability, and this is, again, back to what you said about Jim Rohn, your ability to have riches, however you define riches. Riches could be money, it could be health, it could be relationships, it could be the ability to do whatever you want to do. So freedom, however you define riches, your ability to grow into that riches really comes down to, what are you thinking? Your thought game controls your outside external game. Everything you are right now and everything that you have right now is because of what you were thinking in the past. Yes. And so if you want something different in the future, you got to think differently, because everything that you have, everything that exists is a product of what someone else has thought. And so that's the game. So very often we get into trouble by wanting to change the things around us. So we'll get a new desk, we'll get a new monitor, we'll put new pictures on the wall. But unless we change our thinking, our circumstances won't ever really change.
Yes. Okay, so first of all, thank you for being on the show. That's number one. Nope, that's the wrong one. I wanted the applause. Hey, that's what happens when you haven't been here in 3 weeks. I'm giving Galen a round of applause. So Galen, let everybody know where they can find you on social media and what kind of, this is one call to action and for all the listeners, and where can they find you out on the internet?
Okay, well, I'm going to see if I can answer all those with one take. You can find me almost anywhere. I am on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. You can go to Instagram, and my personal Instagram is Galen Bingham. But I've got a couple of pages. The most fun Instagram page is also the best way to get a hold of me, and that's by going to Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership on Instagram. You can also find Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership on TikTok. We've got a bit of a presence we're rebuilding on Facebook, but Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership is the name of the podcast. We talk to leaders all over the world about 3 things that rarely lie. Number one, the whiskeys they drink, the music that inspires them, and what they believe it really takes to be an effective leader. And as I like to say, Ms.All-Purpose, I double dog dare you to try us at least once. I guarantee you we can take you at least one step closer to realizing who you are supposed to be. So Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership. Yeah. So the podcast, You can subscribe for free on all the podcast platforms. But if you're really inspired, you can become a Patreon VIP. And if you pay $4 a month to be a Patreon VIP, not only do you get the podcast for free, but you also get an extra 30 minutes from every guest that I've ever talked to, dating back to season 2. Currently, we're in season 9, so there's a whole lot of content there.
Okay.
But you'll get extra content from every guest since season 2. You'll also get insight and bios of our upcoming guests, and you get access to me. Trust me, you normally can't get access to me for $4 a month, but I'm going to give you access to me if you are a VIP Patreon subscriber and you've committed the $4. It's not really about the money, and this is I get this from Ann McNeil. It's about the money, but it's not about the money.
Okay.
It's about the money, but it's not about the money. And what I mean by that is, I only want to give this insight to people who are really committed to doing something with the insight. And if you listen on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, if you listen to the normal podcast, you're going to get something from it. But that doesn't really require a commitment, right? All you got to do is push a button and say, I subscribe. And that's not much of a commitment. But if you invest money, in a phrase we like to kick around in the speaker world, is if people don't pay, they don't pay attention.
Yes.
And the more they pay, the more they pay attention.
Yes.
If you invest $4 a month, I know that you're paying attention, and I'm gonna give you this extra insight.
Awesome sauce. Thank you so much, Galen. I'm glad that you finally fit me in your busy schedule. and shout out to your brother too. We had an opportunity to spend a whole day networking and brainstorming at the International Mastermind annual meeting, and it was a good time. It was a good time. So I want to thank you for being here. I do hope you'll come back. I'm glad that I had you on. I was thinking earlier, because at the beginning of the year, a lot of people are setting goals. And so I thought that you will be a great guest for me to come back to, because you dropped so many gems that people can now take and do something with them, and get the brain going and get it started. So thank you.
Absolutely. I am, again, my purpose for being, the reason I spent 30 years in corporate America, the reason that I went to business school, the reason that I've lived in 14 states and 19 cities, the reason for all of that is so that I can help leaders access their highest expression of living. That's why I'm here. That's what God is going to ask me about once I get to the pearly gate. He's not going to be impressed with the awards, although we've got some awards. We got 2 global podcasting awards. He's not going to be impressed with the accolades, although your boy has been acknowledged as by Inc. magazine as being one of the top executive coaches in the country, and by Real Leaders magazine as being the #1 executive coach in the Midwest. God's not going to be impressed by that. What God wants to know is, how many leaders did you help access their highest expression of being? Because that's what I charged you with doing.
Yeah, and God knows everything already, so it's going to be easy for you. Thank you so much, Galen. I appreciate you. Another round of applause. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and please join me back here on All-Purpose Radio. And tell a friend if they're living their best life and have some gems they can drop, send them my way. Is that okay?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Galen. Thank you to my guest, Galen. He was awesome. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna give Galen another round of applause. This has been All-Purpose Radio with your girl, Ms.All-Purpose. So listen, let me remind you, you can purchase my new book, Fearless Advocates. All you have to do is go to fearlessadvocates.com. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of them at Ms.All-Purpose, MSALLPURPOSE. You can find me here most Saturdays, every Saturday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. right here on My Radio Chicago. Listen, if you are in Chicago, we are headed to Daily Plaza. There, shout out to our house music legend, King Farley. He has partnered with Ken Bedford and Channel 7 ABC News. We are headed downtown to Daly Plaza. They are doing Farley made a Bears song, okay? And if you've been living under the rock, the Chicago Bears are in the playoffs. They will play tomorrow, 5:30 Central. But we are headed downtown right now for a Bears rally and video shoot. So I'm going to put on about 5 layers of clothes, okay? Old school style. Your hat, your gloves, wear all your Bears stuff. It's 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. So if you're coming to Daly Plaza, I'm about to head that way now. But I want to thank you to all the viewers, all the listeners, everybody that chimed in. Shout out to Roderick Jefferson, who said, I'm loving seeing 2 of my favorite people together. That was Galen and myself. But thank you, everybody. It's been your girl, Miss All-Purpose, on All-Purpose Radio, right here on My Radio Chicago. Bye.
And if I get rock for my kids, that real. Even though